When is a speed sign not a speed sign? That's the question facing a Taranaki man who's battling his local council over a speed sign which has never had the actual speed put on it.
Daryl McDonald wants to buy this property at Waitara in northern Taranaki and turn the front lawn into a car yard. The property borders the state highway on one side with a 100k limit and a suburban street on the other with, you'd think, a 50 limit. But for some reason the little bit of suburban road on the side of the house has a secret speed limit that's holding up the car yard. This is a grey sign for a very grey area. The council says Princess Street is actually a 50-kilometre zone, but from this sign to the corner there to the main road, just 30 metres, they say is meant to be a 100k zone. But the council has never put up a 100km/h sign. They've left it blank. So Mr McDonald says the small section of road between the sign and the state highway should be 50 kilometres an hour. And that means his yard qualifies for council approval.
There's no road in New Zealand where you have 50k and 100k on the same stretch of road. It's more or less impossible, but we have it here in Waitara.
Transit New Zealand, which controls the state highway, says it has no problem with Mr McDonald's proposal. But the District Council says the small 30-metre section of Princess Street from the state highway to the unmarked sign is zoned 100 km/h. So Mr McDonald's proposal does not meet council rules.
For the purpose of changing the use to a car yard, yes, that would be out of the question.
That's also upsetting the people who want to sell the property.
You know, the council are mucking this guy around, and so we can't go anywhere until something happens.
So the sign that's not really a sign is actually a 100k sign, and that may not be a good sign for Mr McDonald's car yard. John Newton, One News.
New research is raising concerns that two common pain relief drugs could be potential killers. A British medical journal study found that if high doses of ibuprofen and diclofenac are taken long term, it doubles the risk of heart attacks and increases the risk of suffering a stroke. But researchers have stressed there's no extra risk for patients taking small doses.
The risk is about an additional 2 or 3 heart attacks for every 1,000 patients taking these high doses of the drugs, but it's not an exact science, and it could be that there are no additional heart attacks, or maybe 1, or it could be as many as 5, but it's small.
The research analysed data from medical trials involving 140,000 patients. The United Nations has warned that the relief effort for survivors of the devastating earthquake in Indonesia could take 6 months. The 6.3 magnitude quake that rocked Java a week ago killed over 6,000 people and left hundreds of thousands homeless. 12 tonnes of essential medical equipment and supplies from Australia have just arrived, and injuries that should have been treated days ago are finally getting attention. The area is still being struck by tremors, with several aftershocks of magnitude 4 being recorded. A new power generator is on its way to Niue after electricity supplies in the tiny Pacific island nation were cut by a fire on Tuesday. An Air Force Hercules left for Niue Air Base this morning with the generator and 3 engineers. Niue's 2,000 residents have been without power or phones for 5 days now.
The people actually, they're desperate for power. Like they need power for the cooking and also for fridges and freezers and also TVs, lights, etc. And they're really crying out for power at the moment to get the power back on as soon as possible.
Getting the generator to Niue has been delayed by demands on military aircraft to transport troops and equipment to Timor. The internationally renowned scientist whose career was overshadowed by a bizarre poisoning court case was buried in Christchurch today. Canterbury biologist David Lloyd, better known as the poisoned professor, died on Tuesday. A mystery illness had left him paralysed and unable to speak since falling into a coma in 1992.
David Lloyd's family and friends with him for the last time. The world-renowned plant scientist was farewelled at a service in Christchurch, ending nearly 15 years of adversity. Professor Lloyd fell ill suddenly in 1992. Police charged fellow scientist Vicky Calder with poisoning him. Her anger at his relationship with another woman was laid out in court, with Crown claims she cut up his shoes and clothes and bombarded him with vicious letters. There were 2 trials, notorious for their medical complexity. The first ended with a hung jury, the second verdict, not guilty. Those close to him say the label of the poisoned professor overshadowed a brilliant career and a caring man.
You know, we want him to be remembered, you know, in the first place for his scientific achievements, and secondly for being, you know, an outstanding and wonderful person.
But his theories, they apply not just to plants but also to animals, and a lot of that stuff really is the framework that people use now.
When Professor Lloyd came out of his coma, he was left a tetraplegic, blind and unable to speak. But his family say he still lived a full life.
He still was the same old David and still, you know, made a wonderful contribution.
Even though David Lloyd couldn't speak, he still found ways to communicate. His family say right up until his death he met with leading scientists from around the world who sought him out to discuss his work. Juliet McVeigh, One News.
Still to come, the waterfront development that's angering some Wellington business people. A look back into world trucking history thanks to a Southland man's vision. And the fruity new fashion look that's taken over the catwalk in the Big Apple.
After sport, I'll have details of some extreme weather due to hit us over the rest of the holiday weekend. Bitterly cold southerlies are set to bring snow to some areas of both the North and South Islands. And as well as the cold, we can also expect rain and hail, thunder and lightning, and gale force winds.
I'm a straight up person. They know that we're not being straight up.
Faster, cheaper internet, but competitors fear this leopard spots won't change.
Deny, defer, delay. There's influence at every level in Wellington.
Is Helen Clark's door open to you?
You need to ask her.
But I'm asking you.
Then, she's one of our most successful actors.
Do people still think of you as Janet Frame?
I hope not.
Often playing challenging roles.
Intimacy is a film that I am most proud of.
Where there's a story, we'll find it. Sunday, 7:30 on One.